Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for a very special edition of the Steelers preview. Really, it's just any time that the three of us get together and do a podcast, we call it the Steelers preview. We should probably think of another name that we could call these impromptu podcasts. But you know what? During all the craziness it's been this 2020 season, whether it's the Baltimore Ravens, the Tennessee Titans, where the schedules have been changed and manipulated. When the Steelers don't play on Sundays, we typically do a show Sunday evening to talk about anything. And I'm going to put this in the live chat here for both Facebook and on YouTube, that we wanted today's show to be focused on you, the viewer, the person that's watching live. If you want to ask questions, you don't have to do the super chat unless you want to, by all means, if you want to. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can about the team, but understand there's going to be probably a lot of people. There's already over 100 people in the live chat. We've only been on for less than a minute. So by all means, understand that we'll try to get to as many questions as we can, but that's what this show is all about. We want to answer your questions, give you a voice. Let's welcome Bryan Anthony Davis to the show, our podcast producer. What's up, Bryan?
How about the three Stilmigos?
That's something. That's something. I mean, we'll put it that way.
I don't know if it's a good something, but a bad something, but it is something. Now, hey, guys, it's great to be with you. I hate Sundays without black and gold. We haven't had a regular afternoon Sunday in so long. I believe it was like November 22nd, the last time that we had a regular game. So it's really nice knowing that at least the Steelers are tomorrow night. You could watch I'm going to be watching the Brownies, and hopefully the New York football flush them down. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But week 15, woo!
There you go. Dave Schofield, other co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. What's up, Dave?
Not much. I have to give a very special happy birthday shout out, because today is the birthday of the infamous my nephew, Kyle Schofield. It is his birthday today. Happy birthday, Kyle. I'm glad we're doing a show just so I can say happy birthday.
Love it.
Very good. Happy birthday, Kyle. On behalf of all of us here at BTSC, we hope you enjoy it. Let's get right to things. So if you're watching, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube, if you put your question into the little chat box, we will do the best that we can to answer as many as we can. And we'll try to do this as rapid fire as necessary. So if things start getting crazy, we might answer them really quick, or we might spend some more time. I don't think that we can start off with a better question than one Mr. Captain Underpants, who says, do you guys think if the Steelers clinch the AFC North, which the Cleveland Browns are playing the New York Jets right now on Sunday Night Football, if they lose, the Steelers clinch the AFC North, would be their first division win since 2017. The question is, do you think if they clinch, they'll start resting players until the playoffs? Dave, I'll start with you. What do you think about that?
No.
All right. Bryan Anthony Davis?
I mean, do you want more than just that?
That's up to you. If you just say no, we're going to move on.
I don't see them really wholesalely resting people. I can't even spit it out. Resting people totally until the very last week, because as we've seen from other times before, too much rest gives too much rust. So therefore, don't start it too soon.
All right, Bryan, what do you think about the resting of players?
In the spirit of Captain Underpants in the name, tra-la, no. So I'm saying no. Yeah, just like Dave said, you really, if you're going to rest players, it's going to be on the last week. You really don't want to do it in week 16. Actually, that's a good tune-up. Now, you can take some guys out in the second half. You could play it more like a preseason game, but you don't have to. You don't want to keep people out completely.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards I would not have them rest anyone until week 17. That's always been my goal. Even when the schedule came out, I said it on our preview podcast. I want the week 17 game to mean absolutely nothing. Have it be meaningless. Already have locked up your playoff spot, your seeding, whatever the case may be, and you can rest players then. I do not expect them to rest anyone unless they're injured up until week 17. Week 17, if things go as planned and the Steelers, let's say, lock up the number 2 spot, and they can't move anywhere, then by all means, I think that they'll rest as many players as they can. But up until then, I don't think you're going to see them rest, nor should they. They're playing, especially the offense is playing like trash. Why would you rest anyone? Doesn't make any sense. All right. Next question here. from Garrett. Any update on Vince? Dave, I did not see a move today at all when I was checking sporadically. Did you see anything?
No, there's not been. The Steelers have to make a move before tomorrow's game. Well, not that they have to. They should make a move before tomorrow's game. They only have 7 offensive linemen that are healthy. So Isadora should be coming off of the COVID protocol, which has now changed starting immediately. Yeah. Am I correct, Jeff, that if you're in one team's COVID protocol, just because you move to another team doesn't mean that you have to go through a whole new scenario like they've had to do all season.
Correct.
So even though he hasn't got any practice time, they could at least have him active to have an 8th offensive lineman active, or they've got to promote one from the practice squad. I expected that to happen today. Nothing was announced. So I'm thinking it's got to be Isadora tomorrow, and Vince Williams could come back. But I also put an article out there. It's like, do you really want to bring Vince back with no practice? It's one thing coming back with no practice when you're in close contact. It's another thing coming back when you actually had a positive test, and according to his Twitter, he had symptoms. So they might want to proceed with some caution and not have him for this week.
If he's healthy enough to play, he's going to play. If he's still struggling, then they're not going to put him out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he's healthy enough there, they think they're going to play. Bryan, what are your thoughts on that? Anything?
Really not much more to say on that. If he's ready, he'll be there, but we have no definitive word.
Well, let's have you answer this one then, Bryan.
Well, I was just going to also say, remember, if they bring him back, that means they also have to release a player in order to get down to the 53. So they would have to cut someone. And that's why I think it might be better to wait until they know he could be available more.
Mike Murphy Jr. says, can we win a playoff game, Bryan? What do you think?
Absolutely. The New Orleans Saints of 2009 went 13-0. Then they were 13-3 and then won the Super Bowl. This is a team that tomorrow, we've talked about it a lot this week. The narrative has been this is a get-right game for the Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals. If they can start to get right and you start seeing an uptick in the way they're playing, especially if they win against Indianapolis, this is a team that could definitely win in the first round. And you never know. You catch lightning in a bottle, you're back.
Dave, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, people keep asking me, well, what are the Steelers going to do in the playoffs? I think it really depends on how you're playing moving into there. So I would really like to have a better idea. Are they going to be – because right now we would admit that the Steelers, mainly because of their offense, are trending downward. But you can turn that around and be trending upward just over the remainder of the season. So believe it or not, as close as the playoffs are, I still think there's a lot of football to be played before you even get there. So absolutely they can. But the question is, from where they are right now, which direction are they headed?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind this team can win a playoff game. And I'll be the one of the few that will say strongly that I think this team can still win a Super Bowl. They just have to figure things out. This happens to a lot of teams. And the question is, can you continue to win as you go throughout this, we'll call it the soul-searching process? The offense is doing some soul-searching. They got to figure things out. They have to know what's going on. This is a good question from Tyler. He says, the rest of the league is adjusted to the Roethlisberger-Canada marriage. Is this the week the Steelers find a way to counter with more successful pre-snap motions? Now, here's the thing. I find this interesting because I am myself, Dave, we're all privy to the transcripts that come from these, the Randy Fichtner press conferences when he meets with the media, Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin. When you read the quotes and don't just listen to it, you really do get some insight as to the team. So one thing that I learned is that the team, in terms of the offense, would spend an entire day on a typical week, an entire day on third down offense, and then an entire day the next day on red zone offense. And when they had these short, strange weeks, they were having to merge those into one. And so they weren't getting to spend as much time on those specific things. And then Ben Roethlisberger even talked about it. If he has to go under center more, he's fine doing that. So I've said this on my Let's Ride podcast, and I strongly believe it. If the offense is going to turn around, someone, more than one person, is going to have to come in and say, you know what? I'm going to put my pride to the side, whether it's Roethlisberger, Fichtner, Tomlin, Canada, I don't care who, and say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win. If that means that Ben Roethlisberger is under center 75% of the time, Derek Watt's behind him, and James Conner's behind him, then that's what they have to do. I'm not suggesting that's what they should do. That's just an example. But for me, I look at this team and this offense, and yeah, the defenses have caught up with them. They need to get outside their comfort zone now and figure out what's going to work next. Bryan, what do you think?
I have never claimed to be an X's and O's guy. I'm more of an ecstasy and an oh no guy. So I paint the picture. But one thing that I feel that this team needs, ecstasy, the spirit of winning, not dirty. But because I know Dave's like, oh gosh. He's like, where is this going? It's 2 a.m. somewhere, baby. No, so really, they need more of the element of surprise. They need to mix it up. So that's what I'm hoping is going to happen. And you would think that they're going to go ahead and do that. Remember, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I know Dave mentioned that recently. You've mentioned that before. But really, they've tried to mix it up by just doing the same thing over and over with a different guy. And that is still insane to me. So they were doing the jet sweeps, then all of a sudden, jet sweeps are completely gone. So just start mixing it up again, figuring some things out. There's got to be some kind of element of surprise.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Bryan said. That's just one of those things. Jeffrey laid out the whole Matt Canada, Ben Roethlisberger thing several times in some of his film articles, that it's basically two separate offenses that they're not really meshing together. And therefore they're kind of scrapping parts of both of them. He does a much better job explaining it than me, so I'm not even going to try. What I'm going to say is the Steelers' short passing game is allowing the defense to play with more players in the box to be able to shut down both the short passing game and the run at the same time. So you're wondering why the run isn't getting going, because teams are set up to be better able to defense against the run, on top of the Steelers not doing it well. You could still run it well against that if you just play better and play harder than the other team, which they are not doing. So they're also not in the best situation. So if they could get some different things, intermediate passing game and whatnot going on, that's actually going to help those other things, because it's going to have to make the defense completely change up how they're addressing everything.
I think also, you think about the fact that they're going to have a regular week of practice. I never used to think that mattered, but now I kind of do. I kind of do think that a regular week does matter. But let's get to Felicia's question. She gave us $2 in the tip jar. We appreciate that. She said, are we officially moving on from James Conner next season? Dave, we'll start with you.
I would say it's highly likely, just because of the whole unknown of the salary cap with everything. The Steelers have basically, you can only spend so much money, and they've decided to invest their money in certain places, and in other places they've decided to try to go with young, cheap redrafting players. So it seems like wide receiver and running back is where they're trying to save their money.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on Conner moving forward with the Steelers?
Well, his contract is up. I am going to the Dave Schofield well, and I'm going to a fact that Dave brought up a long time ago. 2007, 2006 maybe was the last time that the Steelers re-signed a running back, and it was Verron Hayes. They don't re-sign. They don't give second contracts very often to running backs. So this is a situation where things aren't working. You probably expect them to switch things up. I know nothing's official. Conner is a Pittsburgh guy. If there's a sweetheart deal, if there's a way to keep him at a minimum, I'm sure somebody might throw some money at him. But the way running backs go, once they get that second contract, with whether it be with the same team, and that's very rare these days, or with another team, a lot of the times they're out of the game in 2 years. So with his injury history, you might not see much more of James Conner. You won't see him in 2023. He's probably going to be retired by then. So, that's just a guess with everything that's been going on and the history of the position in the last 10 to 15 years.
I'm just going to say I don't think he's back, period. I just don't think the Steelers have the money. And if they do have any money, which we always say, Bryan said it last offseason, I've said it as well, They'll find a way to sign players they really want to keep. I think there's a long list of players that are ahead of James Conner on that list. We'll put it that way. All right, Ron Chess asked all three of us, do you think they get Claypool involved in the offense more? Dave, we'll start with you.
I would like them to, but like Coach Tomlin says, right now they're kind of limiting his snaps just based on being a rookie and how I see it almost kind of like an analytics thing is, how many effective snaps do rookies get? So they're trying to, have him last longer into the season. But I mean, if you're not going to have him if you're going to have him on the field, you might as well use him as the weapon he is.
Brian,
let's go back to the Denver game in week 2. And we'll look at the fact that they were kind of limiting him. They weren't giving him a lot of action. Next thing you know, 84-yard strike. He's off for a touchdown. Next thing you know, they're using him more and more. It takes that one play for them to take him away from the rookie wall and take his impression away from the rookie wall and see that, hey, there's still some more left in this guy in 2020. Also, sometimes Coach Tomlin's comments are a red herring. And he might even be throwing that out there. I know that's something that Dave and Jeff like to bring up a lot, that, he'll say something and do. I mean, it's perfect for coaches to do that. Say something and do the other, just so you're not tipping anybody off.
Yeah. I think Claypool's going to be used. I think they're going to see more split time between he and James Washington moving forward. And it could be because of the rookie wall. It could be because they want to see what Washington can do. A lot of it is predicated also on Deontay Johnson being able to catch the football. If he catches the football, then he's going to see a lot of snaps, and so will Juju Smith-Schuster. So this is a situation where the Steelers are fortunate enough to have some depth there, but I do think they would be smart to get him in as much as possible. I want to, real quick before I get to the next question, Dave brought up Jeffrey Benedict's Matt Canada and Ben Roethlisberger offense. That was part 1. If you haven't checked out part 2 that ran, I believe, Saturday, check that out. That's about Ben Roethlisberger, his impact on the offense in terms of where he's moving the ball, where he's a great read. Honestly, if you're looking for something to learn a little bit more about the X's and O's and the theory behind offensive football, check that out as well. Here's a really good question from Steeler Chick 46. Who will get the next 100-yard game for the Steelers? Chase Claypool, James Conner, Deontay Johnson, or Juju Smith-Schuster? This is a really good question. Brian, we'll start with you.
I'm going to have to throw my hat and throw my money at either Deontay or Juju, and I'm going to say Deontay Johnson.
All right. Dave, what do you think?
I was the same way. I was going to narrow it down to those two. And the reason I'm going to say Deontay Johnson is I think he would continue to have 100-yard games if he would hold on to the ball.
The next 100-yard game, though, I think, he's hurt. If James Conner is healthy, I'd go with Conner. But, he's questionable. Haven't seen any rumors about him. So I'll go with Juju. I think Juju, just to say something different. All right, let's see here. Try to find some new ones. So, guys, if you see a good one, go ahead and throw it up. I'm trying to find my way.
I'm going to bring up all the Star Wars stuff.
Oh, gosh. I've been avoiding that like the plague.
I know. I want to get in on that.
Please don't. All right, here we go. Jay says, is there anything they can do to improve the offense? They don't have time to merge Ben and Canada's offenses. So, guys, let's talk a little about what do you think is the number one thing the Steelers need to do to improve the offense? And let's try to think about something that is reasonable to actually see, or let me say fixable in the short term. Not that you all would say this, but for the people in the live chat or listening, fire Randy Fiedner. They're not going to fire Randy Fiedner. Okay, they're just not. That's not an answer. So, guys, in your opinion, we'll start with Dave. What is one of the few things that the Steelers could do that could actually improve their offense here down the stretch in the final 3 games?
Really focus on your predictability. I mean, do they not even take that into consideration that when you come out with a certain personnel grouping and in a certain formation, I mean, us Steeler fans who've been watching all the games, we know what you're about ready to do. Why do you not think that the defense isn't going to jump on what you are most likely going to do? It's just a little bit, not even a little bit. It's a lot too predictable. I'm really tired of hearing we don't need to change anything up. We just need to do what we do better. No, the reason you're not doing what you're doing any better is because the defense knows what you're doing. And when they know what you're doing, it's easier to stop what you're doing. So that's not the answer. You know, and I'm not saying they have to go crazy, but at least do something different.
Bryan, what do you think?
Well, that was exactly what I was going to say. So I'm going to throw something out there. I mean, yeah, the predictability thing is driving me crazy, and I think that could be a quicker fix. Now, this is not a quick fix per se, but if you could find a way to do this, it's going to change a lot of things, and that's throw past the sticks. I'm looking for those mid-range passes, maybe about 9 to 12 yards down the field. And if you could find, like I said, easier said than done, but if you could find a way to get those mid-range passes going, you are going to loosen up the offense. You could possibly run a little bit better if you're throwing down the field more, but sometimes that run sets up those mid-range passes.
I find the Steelers' offense to be in a really tough spot right now. If there was anything that they were kind of leaving, hey, we already clinched a playoff spot. We're just going to we're going to get into the playoffs. Once the playoff comes, we're going to unveil some new stuff. I feel like the offense is at the point where you don't have that luxury anymore. You have to try to get something going. You got to run the ball efficient enough to get play action passes. You got to put Ben under center. You have to just make it look different. Go hurry up from time to time. Like, I don't think they should fear doing that type of stuff, but at the same time, I don't think they need to recreate the wheel here. They have a lot of talent. They need their skill position players to play at the next level up. I'm talking from Ben Roethlisberger to the receivers, etc. They really need to do a better job. I think that there's still hope for this offense. I really do. I don't think that this is the end of the world. I don't think the sky is falling, but at the same time, I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I think there is a way for them to actually improve, that it's not something ridiculously drastic. All right. There was a good question here. The question was, if I found it, I would put it up. Here it is. Carswell says, is it time to move on from Keith Butler after this year? Let's talk about both coordinators. We'll talk about Keith Butler on the defensive side, Randy Fichtner on the offensive side. We know what the fans want on the offensive side. But guys, do you see any changes? Bryan, we'll start with you.
I think it's pretty hard to make a change on the defensive side of the ball with what he has been doing, that being Keith Butler. I know you brought another guy in Mr. Austin when Terrell Austin came in last year to help out. That gave Butler a chance to go ahead and help with the linebackers. Next thing you know, the linebackers, especially Bud Dupree, they're going off. Not only that, but TJ Watt got better. You had a much better defense last year, so I don't really think you touch that guy with where they're ranked. Right now, their worst ranking of the big four categories on defense is 6th, and that is against the run. I believe it's against the run.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
The pass, they're number 2, and so they're like 1, 2, 3, and 6, something like that. So. And that's not even throwing in sacks where they're number 1. So you know what? You don't really touch that guy. You'd be crazy to do so. On offense, yeah, man. I really Randy's there because Ben wants him there, but I think even more this year, Ben could find himself being able to part ways with Randy because of the line that's been drawn in the sand and the little tussles of who's calling the shots when they're winning and who's calling the plays when they're losing. That little back and forth, maybe that thing's crumbling a little bit. He's just no value. And I'm sure he's a nice man, but nice doesn't win Super Bowls.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
The only problem with the Steelers' defense is injuries. I mean, if anything, watching the Buffalo Bills on Saturday and them put up and that offense look unstoppable and put up all those points against Denver, who Denver is not a bad defense. They were ranked 16th going into the game. So that's they're a middle of the road NFL defense. And Buffalo just torched them. And then the Steelers, I mean, they completely shut them down the first half. And other than the 2 drives to start the second half before they could adjust back. And the biggest thing that the Bills did was take advantage of the guys that were out for the Steelers. So the Steelers defense, I'm not worried about fixes there. Now, I'm not sure about Keith Butler when his contract's done. I'm pretty sure Randy Fiegner's contract is up at the end of this season. And I would think under normal circumstances, they might not bring him back. But if it's going to, it also depends on what the Steelers want to have happen with one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. And it's probably going to be more Ben's decision about Randy and about his future that's going to make more decisions than anything else to the Steelers doing something.
I think for the offensive side of the ball, it depends on also how they finish. If they right the ship, if they make a deep playoff run, the offense is looking good like it did midway through the season, I think that you would see there's no doubt that he'd be back. If it flounders and continues to nosedive, then it's a different story altogether. Defensively, the question was about Butler. I brought up Fiedner. I don't think there's any way you would want to get rid of him unless he wants to leave. I mean, like Bryan said, the worst ranking they have in the big 4 categories is 6th. This is an elite defense. And I mean, yeah, Bud Dupree might not be back, but Devin Bush is going to be back. You look at all the other players. I mean, maybe Joe Hayden, we're not sure about his future with the team. The defense is pretty much intact. I mean, they've got a couple pieces here there, Hilton, Sutton, all those, but still keep that in mind. Felicia's got a fix for all this, $2 in the tip jar. She says, turn Randy's headset off and let Ben and Matt call the plays. That's some New England Patriots stuff. That's some New England Patriots.
Yeah, but we'd be doing it for our own advantage.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of which, congratulations to all the Patriot haters out there like myself. The Patriots are not going to be in the playoffs this year. Yeah,
nor have a winning record.
I still hate that team. I don't care if Tom Brady's not there. I can't stand him. And even after Bill Belichick retires, I'm still going to hate him. It's just in my blood. I guess it's just in my blood.
I'm with you. You're here.
Yes. Here's Snowman asked, will the Steelers use Wendell Smallwood this year? Dave, you were the one that a couple weeks ago, you were like, they're going to have to bring him up. Did they end up doing it?
They did. I don't know that he actually played did he play anything other than special teams?
I don't think
I have to look that up, but yeah, I mean, he didn't get a carry, or I don't even know that he got a snap on offense, but it's just because they were so short at running back, but they didn't play him. So no, he's still on the practice squad.
Yeah, exactly. Master of Puppet says I'm a hater. Good. We needed one of those. All right, let's I'm trying to think. Well, let me ask you guys this. So you all did you watch the Kansas City game?
Most of it. I was watching Red Zone, so I saw the good stuff. Then I switched to just the game.
It seemed like it was pretty entertaining. Bryan, did you catch any of that?
I watched bits and pieces. Then Christmas Office Party came on, and I moved to that.
No, I was not watching Red Zone because I actually had to go out for a little bit, so I had it on my phone and had it sitting on my dashboard as I was driving. But I couldn't do just the regular game, so I had to go Red Zone for a while. But then when I got home, I turned the game itself on.
Here's the thing about the Chiefs games for me is they're predictable too. They could be losing, they could be down, and they're going to win. They remind me of the Patriots, that team up north that we still hate, but Kansas City is becoming that team I hate too, because it's just they just keep finding ways to win, and you just know they're going to do it, and you're like, hum ho. I'm going to watch Tyreek Hill, who I think is one of the worst people in the world. I don't care how talented he is. I just think he's horrible as a person, and I can't watch him celebrate.
Yeah. They are getting up there into the elite echelon of the teams I hate. I don't like how Patrick Mahomes is being just shoved down our throats every time you turn the TV on. The stupid State Farm commercials and even with him and Troy Polamalu. I mean, Troy looks great, by the way. But, I mean, I don't need to see Patrick Mahomes and his sideshow bob hair all over the place all the time. It's a little much. It's a little much for me. I really don't like that team. They're gonna lose. Someone's gonna beat that team.
If you were looking at that game from more of the Saints' perspective, the Saints kind of feel like the Steelers right now. They could not get much going offensively. I mean, Drew Brees was extremely rusty. I mean, but they got a good turnover at the end. I mean, if they fall on that ball with the end zone at the end of the first half, if you guys even know what I'm talking about, they get a safety. No, they had to punt basically to finish out the first half. It wasn't the normal punt returner for the Chiefs. He was hurt or dinged up or knocked around. He came back, but he fielded it off the hop and then ran backwards. And the Saints stripped the ball and it rolled into the end zone. And when they went to dive on it, he missed it and knocked it out of the back of the end zone. So that was only 2 points instead of 5. And then, of course, then they're going for 2 at another time and don't get it. And then at the end, they got their late touchdown because their defense forced a turnover. It was they're relying. The reason they remind me so much of what the Steelers are going through right now, they're relying extremely heavily on their defense. And their defense at the end was completely wearing down and couldn't get the stop because of the number of 3-and-outs the Saints were having and everything, and their offense just not helping their defense at all. So if you really looked at that and thought about it, it felt a lot like how the Steelers, what they're dealing with right now. And Kansas City still just, I mean, what was that, a 3-point game? So.
Yeah, you need to with the Kansas City Chiefs, you almost have to treat them like they used to. Everyone used to say you had to treat Peyton Manning and the Colts. Your best defense is literally keeping them on the sideline. Mm-hmm. Time-consuming drives that end in touchdowns. Like, that's what you have. And even if you get a lead, we've seen this multiple times. Heck, look at the playoffs last year. That no lead is safe against Mahomes and company. But my goodness, they're a team. They're going to be tough to beat. I'm not saying that. But I just said there's something about it deep in my gut. They're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. We'll put it that way. Kathy gives us $5. Thank you very much, Kathy. She says, Dave, do you know the percentage of players who return after having an ACL tear? Motivation probably helps exceed the overall average. I would say that's a pretty high average at this point with the science that's out there and the surgery and all that. But Dave, do you know?
It is. But I was thinking about this, and I don't know how to look it up for sure. But one thing you have to take – well, 2 things you have to take into account. 1, age. And 2, how do I say it? The quality of player. I mean, I don't know if I should say quality or status, meaning a lot of these NFL guys are, they get drafted, they're in on a cheap contract. They don't even get a second deal. They're out of the league in a couple of years. If one of those guys tears an ACL, he might have motivation to come back and just might not get the opportunity, but we don't really know much about it because they're not a big name person. Most players that are higher profile players, they come back.
Like Devin Bush, like Bud Dupree, they'll be fine. They'll get their contracts.
Here's something I don't know. You might not be aware from the KC game today. Do you know that Edwards-Helaire had a pretty bad injury?
Yeah. Did anyone see exactly what the prognosis was?
I mean, it was something with his leg. At first, I thought maybe it was even his hip, but I couldn't tell. My kids were talking. I couldn't hear it. So, but and then even Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed, he was kind of dinged up at the very end when he got tackled by the face mask to secure the win. But I think he was okay. But he might be the guy going forward. I'm sorry. When I watch Le'Veon Bell play, I mean, he looks like a shell of himself. I mean, he doesn't look like anything like what he did. And he's an older running back, and he's got a lot of mileage on those tires. We understand that. The Steelers definitely he was a workhorse for him for sure. But still, let's go to this question. We'll throw this over to Bryan first. Justin gives us $5. Thank you very much. He said, again, why are the Steelers, against giving James Washington 10-plus targets in a game? He's done nothing but answer the call when called on. Bryan, why do you think James Washington is not seeing the targets? That was the question.
Okay, I am going to channel my inner oracle, my inner Dave Schofield here, and I'm going to tell you this. James Washington has the worst catch percentage on the Pittsburgh Steelers at 58.2%. Next to him is Chase Claypool at 59. Even Deontay and Ebron, they're around 60. They're above. But he is a good complementary receiver. He is not a 10-target a game receiver. Now, he could be one of those guys that could be your surprise go-to superstar in one game and carry you for a game, but the offense is not set up for him to carry you. The offense is set up for him to surprise you. When you're looking at everybody else, all of a sudden James Washington's open And he is not your number one guy, but he's going to make you pay for it. That's how rich they are with receivers right now. I just don't think he has proven anything in the 3 to 4 years that he's been there, actually 3 years now, to be that number one guy and to be that 10 target a game guy.
Dave, thoughts on Washington getting more targets?
He's not the type of receiver that they're looking to throw more balls to. They're looking for those, how do I say it, slippery guys, those little quick hitter, Juju, Deontay Johnson, those little James Washington. He's one of your bigger downfield threats, him and Chase Claypool. Hence why their catching percentage is lower. It's because they are being targeted on longer balls, which are obviously the farther you get down the field, the less likely you are to catch it. So that's what feeds into that number that Bryan was saying, is that he's not a guy that's being targeted often around the line of scrimmage because that's not his strength.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, they need to have more targets. We need to give him more target. He needs to see more snaps. So the problem is like you just said, this is an offense that is built on yards after the catch. It's one of the reasons why it frustrates Bryan so much when they don't run routes to the sticks. They are relying on you, the playmaking receiver, to not just catch the ball, but to make a man miss, get the yardage necessary for the first down after the catch. It's frustrating, but that's what they've built their system around. And to be honest with you, when Deontay Johnson does catch the football, he normally makes at least one guy miss. It's very rare that one player is bringing him down.
And he's getting himself open to get the ball thrown to
absolutely.
him. He's great at getting that separation.
Yeah. And so it's one of those situations where I can't stress how much these drops have killed the offense on more than one occasion. So if they can get themselves right, which I wrote an article for today, I used the quotes from this week, talking about how Deontay Johnson's second half was not the answer to him being benched. The answer to him being benched is going to be in weeks 15, 16, and 17. Is it out of his system? Because the great receivers, and I'm not saying he's great yet, but he could be on his way, they don't have lulls where they're dropping passes like this for 3, 4, 5 games in a row. So hopefully whatever it is, practice time, whatever excuse he wants to use, I don't care. There we go. Someone asked earlier, I'll ask this question now. What do you guys think about the reason for the Steelers getting rid of Stefan Wisniewski when he came off of injured reserve? Because a lot of people are saying, boy, it would be nice to have him back. But why do you think, Bryan, we'll go with you first, why do you think they got rid of Wiz? He's now back with the Chiefs, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering why too. But there's some things that you could look at. You could look at the fact that they might be looking down the line, and this might be crazy for me to bring up. They might be looking down the line and look at the free agent and the compensation pick formula, and not keep him on there. I might even be wrong.
He's not even. He didn't even factor into that.
Okay,
his salary is so low.
Okay, so really, I don't know, because I thought he's kind of a guy that you keep around with depth being an issue. I'd much rather have him out there than J.C. Hassenauer. He stayed so long on that injured list, so I'm wondering if they did not feel that he was up to the task as far as being completely healthy. Of course, it looks like the Chiefs did, and now he's playing, but I think there's a lot to factor in there. I would have loved to have seen him stay, but they know more than I do.
Dave, what are your thoughts? It was just a weird situation in general.
Well, first of all, you guys don't realize that he started and played for KC today. Yeah, he had a reception. He had a reception. No, did you guys see the play? It ended up. It was one of those where Mahomes comes back to pass. It was on 4th down, and the Saints knocked the ball out of his hand. It goes up in the air. Wiz catches it and rumbles for the first down. But the thing is, they said it was a pass, therefore it was illegal touching. I was on red zone. They went away from it, so I didn't get the whole explanation. It would have been better off for the Saints if they would have called it a fumble and he caught it, because on 4th down, you're not allowed to advance it, and they would have got the ball right there. But anyway, so it didn't count, and some people were all about that. But he had to start. He had to fill in and start today. But you wonder who probably would have started for them today if he was there?
Off the practice squad.
Isadora probably would have started ahead of him, because when the Steelers, and Wisniewski, I as far as I know, they didn't actually sign him to the 53. This is twice now where they've brought him up from the practice squad because he reverted back last Monday because he was a practice squad elevation the week before. Unless they signed him this week, and I couldn't find it. Maybe someone could correct me there. But at the time, they brought him back. He had his 21 days. They had to bring him off, and he still couldn't practice. He was still missing practices and everything. And the Steelers were going to have to make a move. They were going to have to make a move and try to get another lineman to the practice squad or something. Who were you more concerned about? Were you more concerned about your younger guys? Like you just got Gerald Hawkins. Did you want to expose Derwin Gray to that? JC Hassenauer? No chance you're doing Kevin Dawson. And that's not what the Steelers, they were more concerned about. I think, this is my speculation, they were more concerned about losing those guys long-term than the benefit that they would get from having Wisniewski, because it's not like he played great against the Giants. And if you watched the Kansas City game, at the end of the game, what is Tony Romo and Jim Nantz talking about? Kansas City really has a problem that they can't protect Patrick Mahomes. Their offensive line is hurting and weak and not getting the job done. So it's not like he's tearing up the world there either.
Ruh-roh. Trouble in paradise. All right, Mark Pace gives us $4.99. He said, what AFC team besides the Steelers can challenge the Chiefs? I will go and say that I think Buffalo is going to be able to play with a lot of teams. I think that Baltimore, if they get in, they're a dangerous team. It's period. We all hate them, but let's call a spade a spade. If they get into the playoffs, they're going to be dangerous. I think they are much more dangerous than personally. I think they're much more dangerous than a team like Miami, just because of the quarterback. Period. But guys, what do you think? Brian, we'll start with you. What team other than the Steelers has the best chance of knocking off the Chiefs?
I was actually going to say the Baltimore Ravens in there, and I'm going to throw in another team that I'm going to get scoffed at because of their defense, but really the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry and that running game, if they could control the clock and they could have some semblance of defense, they could knock them out.
Dave, what do you think?
I'm not going to say Tennessee because of their defense. I would say a worse matchup, I think, would be the Colts because of their defensive front and everything. Because, like I said, I don't think the line for Kansas City, I mean, unless they get healthy come playoff time, that's where they're struggling. So if you have a good defense up front, I think you could do that. That's why I think someone with a good defense like Baltimore, like Pittsburgh, would even have a little bit more of an advantage than Buffalo. But if it's Buffalo and Kansas City, you're looking at a 40-point shootout, which would be entertaining for other fans to watch. Trust me, I would love to see that, to see Buffalo KC, but I just don't know that that's the right matchup there.
Yep. So there you go. Guys, anything to add here before we call it a show? Brian, we'll start with you. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts before I get to that. I just want to let Snowman know in the live chat that if he's going to make fun of my shirt, my grandpa's shirt, that's at least $5 in as a super chat. And so this is actually a pretty stylish
I could
shirt.
tell when Brian read that because he looked down at what he was wearing.
I didn't even know. I had no clue. It's Sunday, baby. Yeah. So Snowman,
in his Sunday best. All right, Dave. Final thoughts on Brian's wardrobe, or just in general?
Can I ask you guys a question? You can answer sure. with the short answer. Who's starting at left guard for the Steelers tomorrow night?
I'm going to say Hassenauer. If not Hassenauer, Derwin Gray. I just think that they're going to go with, I don't know, because we've never seen really Derwin Gray at all. So I have no idea what he can and cannot do. That's something that the coaching staff, I have no idea. Brian, who do you think is going to start at left guard tomorrow?
I think Hassenauer too. I mean, it's familiarity.
It could be up to Pouncey too. Like if Derwin Gray is someone kind of like, Dave, you said that Dotson and Pouncey play really well together. If Pouncey's like Hassenauer, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Gray at least has some semblance of an idea. Then I think that might answer your question right there.
I mean, because it couldn't have been Gray. Gray wasn't active last week because he would have been the fourth guard, which made no sense. They needed to have a second center. So therefore, after two guards go down, they had no choice but to go to Hassenauer. We'll get a real idea if they really think that Hassenauer is a guard or if they're really just keeping him to back up Pouncey.
Yeah. I do want to bring up this one question here before we call it a show from Matt B. He said, did any of you guys see Villanueva's press conference? Kind of seemed like he doesn't really care, or at least isn't motivated compared to someone like Cam Hayward, who's just like a raging bull. Let me just say, you have to remember who you're talking about. You're talking about an Army Ranger who has spent 2 tours over in Afghanistan, who has has been given medals for his valor and his, what he did for our country. Think about that compared to just playing in a football game. Like, to him, the NFL is not the be all end all. He's seen things that us regular citizens will never even fathom, period. And he said it in his press conference, because I did follow along and I watched it on Steelers on the app. You can watch all those press conferences on the app. And he's a guy that he doesn't listen to the noise. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what I think. He cares about himself, what his coaches think. And he's going to go out and he's going to bust his butt for his teammates. And he talked about, and I wish I could do this now. He got rid of his cell phone and got a flip phone. He hasn't been on the internet in like a year. That's just who he is. And it's just one of those things where, some people like Matt, and Matt, this is not your fault. It was an honest question. For someone like Matt, you got to think about his perspective on things. His perspective on things is not us as a fan. It's not, the Steelers are the be all end all. It's just not. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to listen to not just Villanueva, but not Al Faneca, Big Al. I wanted to say David DeCastro last year, because they are best buddies. And I listened to them on the Fan, and they were there for an entire hour, just uncensored, being themselves. And this is the guy, this is the quiet big guy that hangs out with your group, that has your back. Anything you need, he's just not going to speak up. He is not going to be the guy that is making a scene. He's just the cool guy in the corner holding the beer, and but you know that he is loyal and true. And so he's not, everything Jeff said is correct. He's not going to get all revved up about this. Neither is a guy like DeCastro. DeCastro is not going to get revved up. You're going to listen to DeCastro on interviews, and you're going to feel like maybe he doesn't care either. But it's just their personality. Not everybody has the type A type of personality where they're loud and in your face. Not everybody's a bad. Some of them could be a Dave or a Jeff.
I was going to say a Tony.
Isn't loud in your face. or a Tony.
See, because Tony, when you talk to him, he isn't as fired up. But in the written word, he's completely different. That's kind of like Big Al. He's kind of laid back and everything off the field, but he's going to go out there and get the job done on the field.
Would you rather a guy be rah-rah in a Zoom call, or would you have him rather go out and be quiet and just play well? I think Villanueva's had a great year. He's never been the best run blocker, but I mean, pass protection as a left tackle, that's what you hang your hat on. He's been doing a great job. So it may not be the look that you want, but at the same time, if you're getting the job done on the field, that's what matters the most.
You don't gotta talk sexy to be sexy. How about that?
There you go. Brian knows a thing or two about that. All right, folks. Thank you all for chiming in and joining us for this special Steelers preview episode. A lot can change between now and tomorrow, depending on how the Cleveland Browns game ends up. What's the score right now as we finish it up? Anyone have a score total?
Did they were about ready to score another touchdown. The Giants keep not going for field goals and trying to score. They've turned the ball over on downs twice inside. I think even the 10-yard line. If not, it was at least inside the 20. But
Gyro says 14-3.
Yeah, right. Where I'm watching right here, it's delayed because it's online. It's only 7-3, but it's second and goal right now.
Well, the thing is that the Steelers can lock things up on their own. They win on Monday night. They lock up the division. Then we start talking about seeding, what that would take, where they're going to lock up their spot, all that good stuff. So make sure you check out all of our content. Tomorrow, Monday, you'll have my Let's Ride at 5 o'clock in the morning talking about, is the Steelers season really over? Is it really over? Because a lot of people think it is. And then we'll obviously have our post-game show after the game tomorrow night late. You can watch me try to stay awake during those late night podcasts. So check us out live on YouTube or on Facebook as well. Nonetheless, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com should be your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. In the meantime, be safe out there, everyone. We will see you tomorrow night for the Steelers post-game show, hopefully after a win. I'm sick of losing. All right, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
There you go. We'll see you.